Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting for AlexisNext Stouffville, located at 465 Rupert Avenue. We're glad you're able to join us and spend time with us this evening to learn more about this project. Eric, can I get you to go to the next slide, please? Just to give you a bit of an outline of how this meeting will go tonight, we'll start with a brief introduction of the project team, as well as an introductory video that provides a little bit of info about who AlexisNext is and what this new center is or will provide rather. Then we'll go into a project overview, which will be about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll also give an overall overview of the MZO process, the approval timelines, and the actual site itself. And then we'll go into questions, which is really what this meeting is about. We're excited that we are able to join us and we look forward to hearing your comments. Some of you already submitted comments via email, which is great. So we have an indication of some of the topics or themes that you might be interested in this evening. And then we'll go into closeout and we'll provide you with some next steps. Next slide, please. So just some ground rules for tonight. Just please remember to be courteous and respectful, either in how you're answering questions or the questions that you put into the Q&A feature. And as a reminder, I believe all of you are muted at the moment. Once we begin the Q&A, if you would like to ask a question, we'll be able to unmute you so that you can ask your question live. Alternatively, you'll be able to type your chat into the Q&A if you prefer to have your question submitted that way. If you'd like to ask a question live, you can raise your hand at any time, but please note we'll be holding questions till the Q&A period so that we have enough time to get through the presentation and have enough time for you to ask your questions as well. Also note that this meeting is being recorded simply for the purposes or the benefit of the team, the project team, so they can reflect on some of the comments that we received tonight, some of the questions that you've put forward, and that will help them as we move forward with this project. And meeting minutes will be taken and a summary will be provided rather to the town of Stouffville. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea of who the project team is and who's at the table tonight, we'll conduct a brief round of introductions. I'll start off by saying that I am Ryan Adamson from WSP. I'll be your facilitator and moderator tonight. I'll be looking out to see who'd like to ask questions and directing questions to the appropriate staff members. And next we have William.
I'm William Eggy. I'm the president of AlexisNext and the team lead for this project on the development side.
Thank you, William. And we have Huda. Oh, Huda, you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Huda Juma, and I am an architect, healthcare planner at Alexis Lodge.
Thank you, Huda. And Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Milchin. I'm a consultant and advisor to Alexis Lodge on the approvals process.
Great. Eric?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Mark. I'm a planner with WSP, and I'm the lead on the planning and approvals front for the project.
Perfect. And we'll go to Craig.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Bumstead. I'm a professional transportation planner. I'm a senior project manager in the transportation planning department at WSP Canada, and I will be responsible for the traffic related matters on this project.
Perfect. Okay, next slide, please. So like I said, this meeting is really to give you a chance to learn more about the project, the approval process, the timelines. There'll be some information outwards to you through the presentation. And then we will be spending the second half of the meeting gathering your feedback, answering your questions, receiving comments. I've already seen one come in from Charles. Thank you. We'll make sure to get to that when we are doing the question and answer period. just for anyone who's interested, at the bottom, you'll see a little bar that shows you Q&A and raise hands. That is how you can begin to start submitting your questions or raising your hands to provide a live question by speaking into your microphone. So with that being said, I will like to introduce a brief video that gives you an idea of what AlexisNext is and what this site is proposing to provide to future residents. So Eric, when you're ready.
Yep, bear with me 1 second.
I'm always reminded of this incredible but lesser known Aesop fable called the
I'm sorry, everyone, I'm getting some feedback in the video. Let me try one more time.
I'm always reminded of this incredible but lesser known Aesop fable called The Donkey and the Mule. And in it, there's a man who owns both of those animals and loads them up for a journey, but ends up taking them through some very mountainous terrain. As it turns out, the donkey is suffering under his load and begs the mule to relieve him of some of it. But the mule refuses. The donkey eventually collapses under this weight. The man, needing to continue the journey, straps the load of the collapsed donkey onto the mule, but knowing the value of the donkey's pelt, actually loads that onto the mule as well, giving the mule even more weight than he would have had to carry in the beginning. In Ontario, the people are ready to help fix the problems of eldercare, but there's never been a way to help. At Alexis, we're working to change that. I'm William Eggy, and I'm the president of Alexis Lodge and leading the project for AlexisNext. My parents started Alexis Lodge back in 1999. Actually, it was named Alexis is actually my younger sister. And when we were kids, we were here on the weekends a lot. We were talking to residents and to their families. And even at a young age, 7, 8 years old, I remember hearing the terrible stories about trying to find a place for a loved one with dementia, how hard it was to find a place, how the conditions in some homes were just absolutely horrendous. And, these things, stayed with you, stayed with me growing up. And so when I looked and I was able to take over this company and, you remembered a lot of these stories. And it was from there that I said, what's missing in this marketplace, what's missing for people is a product that's built specifically for them, not just a one-size-fits-all. And that's really what motivated us to flesh out what's become AlexisNext.
My name is Christiana Eggy, and I'm the Executive Director of Alexis Lodge. Our plan with Alexis Lodge Next is to take this module that we have developed that is so successful and so helpful. We want to expand upon it. Not only that, we want to take this up a notch. We want to include technology. Technology is a part of life now.
Wearable technology that can give you deep level insights into your residents. You can bring that care level right up to the top and give people the type of experience that they're looking for and that they expect. Our plan is to start with building our flagship facility in Stouffville. We believe that that flagship will serve as the base for a future network but it's essentially a bunch of decentralized pods also connected to that home. We'll use the excess capacity of that home, whether it's for things like cooking, maintenance, home caregivers, all of that will be based out of that single facility. The costs essentially are the costs. So if everybody can tap into that network, the cost per person will drop. And that's how we envision bringing down the price of care. And that's how we see Alexis Stouffville as being a foundation upon which we can build.
Every moment at Alexis Lodge is a reminder of what we do. Just seeing the joy on the faces of our residents. We've actually been able to discharge a couple of people with acquired brain injuries back home. When they came here, they were very violent and aggressive and stuff, but with love, compassion, and care and respect, they settled down and were able to get their lives back. I leave my staff with this. When you get home every night and you look at yourself in the mirror, you should like what you see staring back at you. So my goal every day is to put a smile on everyone's face.
Well, to me, it's the right model. And she has really developed the right model for care for our loved ones that need the help and need the support.
Alexis Lodge has been a blessing for our family. They take amazing care of my father-in-law. He's always clean, neat, tidy, fed well. There's never a worry in my mind that my father-in-law is not being taken care of. I know, I'm confident that the staff here and Christiana take care of him the way he needs to be taken care of, and they just love him like he's one of theirs.
I was told about it, and I called Christiana I wanted to know more and find out. I was so, honestly, you can't talk to, I'm tearing up now when I think of it, because you can't talk to Christiana without just being in love with her, right? Like she's so kind. Yeah. She's so compassionate. And I thought, right away, I thought, oh, she's going to be just wonderful for him.
Alexis Lodge is a home that is built on the foundation of love, care, empathy, compassion, and respect. Alexis Lodge is a home where anyone would want their loved one to live, or even myself. I've worked day and night to make this home a place where, should I need care down the road, my family will be content to say yes, we know mom will be well cared for at Alexis Lodge.
Best place to work from the beginning. I'm 18 years here now. Anybody come here, they are so lucky residents. They come here, they cannot walk. When they go out, they can walk.
Like just like holding their hand, give them some kind of comfort. Just putting a smile on their face.
Alexis Lodge is a magic place. When you come inside, you take time to go outside.
The other interesting part of what we're doing with AlexisNext Stouffville is that the facility is going to be built on the original site of the Parkview retirement home, actually nursing home. And it was one of the early communities that we had here in Stouffville. And in that sense, we think that this is a sort of natural progression of the site, returning it to its roots.
So we don't only care for our residents, we also support their families. And they never go away from us. We call it the Alexis Lodge family. They always come back with treats and, just support for everyone.
It's like a family.
It is a family.
Please bear with me another minute while I bring back the presentation. Ryan, is it showing you the AlexisNext page now?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So thanks everyone. I'll take over for the next bit of the presentation. Again, my name's Eric. I'm a planner with WSP. And I'll be giving you an overview of the project itself in terms of the building, the size, what you can expect to see on Rupert Avenue. And then after that, I'll go into a conversation about the minister's zoning order that the project is currently requesting through the town of Stouffville. So we're all here tonight, I think, aware of where 465 Rupert is, next to Rupert Park on Rupert Avenue, just north of Main Street in Stouffville, and sandwiched between the park and the recently built condominiums at 481 Rupert Avenue. So on the screen right now is the site plan for the project, showing you the context of it relative to the size of the condos next door. This is proposed as a 5-story building with up to a maximum of 120 beds for residents. Parking would be provided in a mix of 1 story of underground parking beneath the building and then some surface parking on the west side of the building. There would be a shared access road between Alexis Lodge and the condominium buildings to serve as access for both properties. The total building size is just over 120,000 square feet. And like I said, 5 stories generally, but at the rear of the 4th and the 5th stories, we've employed what's called terracing or stepping down. So the rear of the building appears to doesn't impose as much on the properties to the north of the building. A quick slide on the current existing planning context for the town of Stouffville in their planning documents. So this property already right now is zoned as institutional in the town's zoning bylaw. The institutional zone permits a number of different uses that includes group homes, long-term care facilities, and senior citizens apartments. So the proposal of a memory care home through AlexisNext fits nicely in that in terms of use. I'll note that the institutional zone, the way it's laid out right now, does have a maximum height of 12 meters, and the current design for the building is proposing an 18.9 meter high building. In terms of the official plan for the town of Stouffville, the whole area, if you look at the map on the right of your screen, a large section of this area north of Main Street is designated as existing residential area. The existing residential area designation does allow for institutional uses generally, subject to certain conditions such as traffic studies, and typically that they're to be located on an arterial road. I will note that Rupert Avenue is not an arterial road, but we're employing a number of different design features to ensure that the institutional use can match as much as possible the existing residential area. Existing residential area also permits low-rise apartment buildings, specifically when they're compatible with the existing neighborhood character, to further my point about the design of the building. So talking on design, we'll then go into a couple of slides on what we call elevation drawings of the building. So what each side of the building is currently planned to look like. I'll note that these are the current versions of the drawings, and they are subject to be updated based on feedback we received today, feedback we received from the town. These are by no means locked in final. So on the screen right now, the 2 main elevations showing south on the left and north on the right. The south elevation is what is proposed to be facing onto Rupert Avenue, the main entrance of the building. And the north elevation is what would be seen from the homes to the north of the building. And you can see on that north elevation, some landscaped balconies and terraces at the top 2 floors where the building steps back. At the very top of the screen is a rendering of the building as seen looking through the Rupert Park. So that's the side of the building that would be facing the park, with windows and balconies from resident rooms, as well as windows and balconies from the common dining areas and common areas in the middle of the building. And so it's been designed to provide some visual interest from the park rather than just a single slab of monotonous building. Going a little further, we have elevation drawings of the full sides of each building. So on the top is, again, the east elevation, which is what would be seen from the park. And then on the bottom is the west elevation, which is what would be seen from the condominium buildings. You can see on the top right and the bottom left of this drawing, it shows the 15-meter yard behind the building, and then projections of what the view shed might be from some of the properties to the north, so that your view, if you're looking up above the fence from behind the properties to the north of the building, they're looking up towards the step backs of the building, and showing how the step backs would work in order to reduce that visual, the visual wall of the building itself. Next up, we have a floor plan for one of the typical floors of the building. You can see on your screen, each floor plan is proposed with a mix of room types, featuring single rooms, double rooms, and what we're referring to as memory care suites. These are slightly larger rooms with a few more amenities, a bar fridge, a kitchen countertop, for residents that want that kind of feature. None of the rooms are proposed with cooking facilities of any type. Every room is dependent on the common elements of the building. Each floor is equipped with a common dining area, common areas that would be serving each of the residents. None of the rooms are proposed as apartments in any capacity. They're all functioning as a unified memory care home. Each floor is set up as 2 separate units, one to the north and one to the south, depending on the floor, with a range of, I believe it's 10 to 16 beds. So that was a brief overview of the building itself. And then I'm going to explain here a bit about what's referred to as a minister's zoning order. So in Ontario, this is a planning tool, an MZO by its shorthand, which is a tool employed by the Ontario Minister of Municipal Affairs. And he can issue an order that provides site-specific zoning for a particular property, for a particular area that each order will apply to. So Alexis, as it currently stands, has requested that the Town of Stouffville Council, your local municipal council, support an MZO request to the ministry for this project. And the reason for the MZO is that they would provide that site-specific zoning to help further this project. They would, by getting an order from the minister, it enables the project to instead replace what would normally be a rezoning process, and thereby guaranteeing specific timelines to support this project, to support what's a priority community project coming out of the pandemic and our lessons learned about senior care. And it helps ensure expedited planning approvals with the town. In a similar vein to my comment about the rezoning, as it's proposed right now, the MZO would allow the project to replace what's normally known as a site plan control process, and instead replace it with a custom agreement between the town and AlexisNext, which would still have all the requirements of site plan control, still allow the town to require fees, still allow the town to impose conditions, still allow the town to review drawings. The only difference is that it removes that formal process and allows for acceleration of that review. So as an introduction to the MZO generally, to reiterate, on the left, the MZO, it does set site-specific zoning for the project, for the property. It changes the zoning regulations. These include things like height, property line setbacks that I'll get into on the next slide. And it does require Alexis to sign a development agreement with the town before construction can go ahead. The MZO does not change the permitted uses of the property. Institutional uses such as long-term care homes are already allowed on the property, and the MZO does not lock in the design details. The MZO instead provides a confirmation of what essentially is a, if you can imagine, a 3D building envelope for the property, for the project, so that we have certainty on the maximums and minimums that the building can fit into. And from that, the project can still be designed further based, again, as I said, on comments we received tonight, comments we received from stakeholders, comments we received from the town, and we can go forward with those and the project can evolve. So I have the next two slides. They're a bit more technical, but for those of you who are curious, the next two slides show some of the details of the zoning regulations that are proposed in the MZO itself. So I'll run through these. I'll try and toe that fine line between simple but covering it all so everyone can have a good understanding. You can see a number of the zoning regulations are unchanged from what's currently allowed today. And then the majority of the other changes are proposed largely based on the property's shape itself is a bit of a triangle. It's quite narrow at the front of Rupert and it widens as it goes to the north. And so that creates some differences in how you would normally build your standard rectangular building on a rectangular lot. For example, the minimum lot frontage currently required is 30-meter minimum lot frontage. Actually, this table, those two numbers should be switched. My apologies. The minimum lot frontage normally is 30 meters in this area. And the MZO would change that to 20 meters, and that's reflecting the current width of the front of the property. It's not proposing to cut the property anyway, it's bringing the zoning up to standard to reflect what currently exists. As you can see, the minimum lot area and the front setback are unchanged. Setback meaning the distance between the property line and the closest building, closest part of the building. The side yard setback is proposed to have a small reduction from 4.5 meters minimum today to 4 meters. And this is largely to allow the building to follow the eastern property line. Because it's on an angle following the park, the reduced setback lets the building taper as it follows the property line going north, so that we can better get a consistent frontage. The rear yard setback is unchanged at 15 meters. And the maximum building height, like I mentioned earlier, is currently a 12-meter maximum on the property. The MZO proposes a maximum of 20 meters and 5 stories. So in either case, never more than 20 meters and never more than 5 stories. This would allow the project to achieve the operational scale it needs to make the most use of the common elements that are supporting all of the residents, things like the commercial kitchen, and the staffing levels required. And an additional note is that the floors are proposed slightly higher than in your standard building. This is due to coming out of the pandemic, increased ventilation requirements for buildings of this type. And so each floor, the height has been increased slightly to allow for additional ventilation equipment and ducting that needs to be between each floor to provide that service. Our second slide on the zoning details, here you have in front of you. The current minimum landscaping requirement for the property is 20% of the lot area. The MZO currently proposes to change it to a 15% minimum. That said, the plans as they're currently drawn up provide for 20% of the property to be open landscaping. That's landscaping that's on the ground. There's also additional resident amenity spaces on the terraces that is landscaped and gardened. That's not included in this percentage, that's in addition to this percentage. And the reason for the change in that minimum is to allow for flexibility in the design. So as the town and other comments come in, the design evolves for the driveways, the parking lot areas, there might be the need for some flexibility in adapting how much landscaping space there is. And so having that minimum change slightly allows the project to adapt as needed. The maximum lot coverage in this area is currently 30% for an institutional building. That means that a maximum of 30% of the property's surface would typically be allowed to be building. In this case, the MZO is proposing to change that to 40%. Again, this is based on the unusual shape of the property. If you had a more typical rectangular property with a rectangular building, you would have fairly even open space on all four sides of the building. However, in this case, because of the triangular shape, you lose a lot of the corner spaces on the east side of the property that would normally contribute to that amount of open space. And so that's why that change is proposed. Parking, there was a number of questions on parking. The current parking rate for long-term care homes in the town zoning bylaw is 1 space for every 3 beds. And 4% of which need to be accessible, and that's not proposed to be changing. I meant to comment earlier that there is no resident parking proposed. None of the residents are expected to have a car or to be driving. The parking provided is purely for staffing and visitors, which is how the town allocates that rate. The final 2 rows speak to loading, which is talking about delivery trucks providing the supplies and services that are needed for building of this type to function properly. The standard institutional rate in the town's bylaw requires that a building of this size provide 5 large spaces. The MZO is based on the loading requirements of this specific building and is proposing a range of 1 to 3 small spaces to be provided. This is based on the operational estimates provided by Alexis, the expected amount of food delivery trucks, expected amount of other delivery trucks, and the delivery schedule that's planned for the building. So deliveries will be able to be scheduled at certain times based on the needs of the building, based on the needs of the community, and to make the most of 3 small spaces. And that way, additionally, reducing the loading requirement frees up some of the land around the building that otherwise would need to be allocated to be asphalt paved area for loading. And instead, we can reorient it to be other purposes, such as keeping that landscaped open space rate up. The final element is the loading setback. So this is the setback of the loading area from residential zones, such as the existing homes to the north of the building. Currently, there's a requirement for a 10-meter setback between loading zones and residential zones. The MZO is proposing to reduce that to 5 meters, but under condition that it's appropriately screened. So on the plans earlier, we showed it's proposed to be a privacy fence, landscaping, and a pergola, all in that setback zone between the loading zone and the homes to the north. So that's to screen it visually, to enclose the loading area, and to provide as much mitigation as possible between those 2 zones. The reason for the reduction is to try and keep the loading spaces as much as possible to the rear of the building so that they're not facing the street, they're not facing the public areas of the building, the garden areas at the front, and to keep the loading spaces as discreet as possible. A quick slide on project timing. So tonight, July 13th, we're meeting to discuss and to answer the community, answer your questions. Next week, the MZO request is going to the Town of Stouffville Council. Town staff are preparing their own report to council based on the drawings that you've seen here tonight, based on the proposed text of the MZO itself. Should on July 20, should council approve of that, then theoretically the MZO package would then be submitted sometime in August to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for approval. And again, none of these are by any means guarantees. Should that be approved by the ministry, by the minister in August, then the project and the town would go forward to work on that development agreement I mentioned, to look at the review of the drawings, to look at a review of the materials, with hoped for construction start as early as winter of 2021, 2022, but that's subject to all of these approvals, subject to approval by the town. And that's how the timeline currently looks. And with that, I will return it to Ryan.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so we've had participants diligently entering questions throughout the presentation, which is great. So we have a lot to start off with. Just as a reminder for all the participants here, if you do have questions, you are more than welcome to type them into the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom bar of your screen. You may need to move your mouse to see that bar. And then if you'd like to ask your question live by speaking into your microphone, you can click on the raise hand feature. It kind of looks like how my hand is presented to you now, and we'll call on you when it's time to ask that question, and you'll be unmuted. In the interest of time, I'm going to do my best to group similar questions, but I will go in order of how they were submitted. The first one is should be an easy one, more of a procedural question from Ivan, who's asking, will a transcript of this session be available to us all as well? Perhaps it's for William.
Yes, so it's my understanding through the Zoom program that it's doing the live transcript as we speak. And then what I also plan to do is to, as you were notified upon entering the meeting, that the Zoom is being recorded. We'd like to post this recording to our website as well, so that members of the public who weren't able to attend tonight can watch the presentation and get up to speed.
And will the report going to Stouffville Council be made publicly available as well?
Yes, the report, Stouffville will be doing their own, as is typical for a council meeting. They'll prepare an agenda and they'll make their report publicly accessible. And also, we're also going to put up our slides on the website as well, so that can be reviewed in case it's not clear in the recording.
That's great. Thank you, William. All right, we have a question from Sherry who says, I live in the building next door, but do not face east. I do have a friend on the east side, and I'm concerned about the new building reducing light coming into her unit. Any comment? And I'll direct that towards Eric.
Yep. So the way the building is currently laid out, I mentioned that the side yard setbacks were being changed, but this does not impact the west side of the building. The west side of the building is still keeping the access road that is already there between the existing building and the condos. So the building is keeping at minimum the width of that road away from the condos, and so there aren't expected to be significant impacts from that proximity.
That's great. I believe we did have a question as well of a similar vein. So I'll throw this to you as well, Eric, from Charles. And Charles is asking, we are residents on Elm Road on the north side, and we do not agree with 5 stories regardless of the terrace. We believe, we will have our daylight impacted unless you can show a plan to the contrary.
Okay, we currently do not have a shadow study prepared, but typically a 5-story building, it's sorry, I tried to say too many words at once. 5-story buildings wouldn't necessarily receive a shadow study from that kind of thing, but I can turn it over to Huda and William to see if that's something they would consider.
Yeah.
I'll actually take this question. Okay. So basically right now, everything that we're talking about is, so we did the terraces with our neighbors to the north in mind, and but we also have constraints on our operational capacity. That's something that we're going to continue to look at, and we can try to, whether it's a shadow study or there's other avenues that we can look at to address that. So I'd say that that's noted, and we'll be back with some more answers on that, and we'll post that to the website.
That's great. I believe Charles may have a follow-up. He's raised his hand, so I'm just going to offer him the opportunity to ask that. So I'm going to allow you to talk, Charles, and you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. Go ahead.
Terrific. Thank you, Ryan. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. So, thanks, Mr. Iggy. I appreciate your response to that question. I really don't think it's a big ask from the residents behind this to offer a shadow study. You showed in your slide a shadow study from Rupert Avenue. So, I mean, I really would think it would not be that cumbersome to give us the same level of courtesy. As you probably know, Mr. Iggy, we back on to the apartment building condominium here that was built, and a concession at the time was made to have the back portion of that building at 2 stories in alignment with what the residents had agreed. So I appreciate the fact that, you know, the pictures look very nice and you know, and everything else with the terraces. However, we certainly would like to at least understand what that impact is on our backyards.
Yes. Well, thank you, Charles, for that. And I appreciate your, you know, I appreciate the concerns that you've raised. And, you know, I don't think you're not wrong at all. A shadow study is not a big ask. And what I would say is that we can certainly coordinate that with the town and at least make that available to everybody. And when in talking about the building next door, again, yeah, I know that was a consideration for the design of that building, and this project, we're definitely listening to residents' concerns and, you know, trying to balance that with the zoning bylaw and what's needed. So let's work together on it. I think the shadow study is a great place for us to start and to make that.
Can I just want to add something else on what William is saying, that our building, because it's narrow from the north and south,
I do think you're right.
It will not have a big impact on the north neighbor. And also the terraces, if you look at them, it's really 3-story building, and the distance between the neighbor, the backyard and the building is about 25 meters. So it's about 60 feet if you are on the 5th floor. So it is really staggering. And we will do a study, shadow study as well.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, so we will go ahead and go on to the next question. There's a couple questions about this topic, so I will ask them in succession, more or less, unless they're adequately covered. And this might be for Peter. I have a question from Ivan who's asking, do you have any ethical hesitations about using an MZO, given that it is, that it circumvents established opportunities for citizen input? Are you concerned about the optics around trading off consultation for speed? And he's specifying that it's consultation with citizens.
That's a very good question. And I can tell you, nobody enters into asking for an MZO lightly. It's a very serious thing. And I think, you know, when you look at the purpose of that provision in the Planning Act is for public infrastructure, for projects that are significant to the public good. And this particular project fits perfectly within that. Seniors care facilities are in short supply in our province. Richard Stouffville is growing quickly, and you have an aging population as well. So it's, I think, no doubt, nobody's going to question that it's a facility that's needed. And in this case, you know, we're not proposing a wholesale change in use because it's a permitted use. We're not proposing to build on top of environmentally sensitive lands. We're not proposing to expand, you know, the boundaries of the town. we are proposing to build the kind of facility that is permitted on this site, but to expedite the process somewhat. And I have to tell you, the town of Stouffville is miles ahead of many other communities in Ontario in terms of the process that they've established for somebody requesting an MZO. The town of Stouffville actually has a formal process for it. Many other towns don't. And your councillor insisted that we have a community meeting before this go forward. And he was right in asking that of us. And we're very happy to do this evening. But it's also not the end of the process. If we are successful in securing the ministerial zoning order, we still have to work with the town, with your councillor, and you can work through your councillor and through your planning staff on having various concerns addressed. So it's not that this is a final step in the process. It's just another step in the process. And just finally, there's a difference between this type of facility and say building a condominium or townhouses, where the developer puts up a sales office, pre-sells them, they know what money they're making, they have money in the bank to help finance the construction. This kind of a project, there is no money coming in until it's finished and people start moving in. So financing it is much more difficult. And having that certainty around the zoning and the timing of that zoning is significant in terms of the ability of Alexis Lodge to secure the financing early on and be able to move towards starting construction sooner. But I do appreciate your questions. And as I said, we did not enter into this lightly.
Great, thank you, Peter. I do have a follow-up question from you from Charles. Well, not a follow-up, but in the same vein, which is asking, does the MZO have the right to veto a decision made by the town?
Well, the MZO will set in place the zoning for the property. So in this case, the height, the setbacks, the coverage of the site. So that will be set in the ministerial zoning order. But there's still a lot of details to be worked out, which will be worked out in a collaborative manner with the town. So in this case, it's not that we're asking the MZO, the minister, to come in and overrule the town. We're simply working with the town and the minister to try to expedite this process to get to a point where I believe we would eventually get to anyway. But it would take upwards of an additional year to do so.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I'll just read out this comment made by Joyce, which also follows the same line of thought. And she says, this is not a question, but a comment. I can't help but feeling that going for an MZO is a sign of mistrust of the Stouffville Council. Do you not think that Stouffville shares some of the same values of providing quality care for seniors and would make the changes in zoning necessary in order to build the project? Given that this is a comment, I do want to grant the opportunity for someone to respond before we go on to the next comment.
I would just say that William has been working with the town for quite some time. I started on this project in April and have been consistently in touch with the town. Absolutely, your council shares those values, and they do want to see senior care facilities built in the town. We're working with them to see if there's a way that we can speed up that process. But your town is making sure that if it does get sped up, they still have a significant role in determining the final form and shape and materials of the end project.
That's great. Okay, so just to give us spice things up, we're going to go to a live question and then we'll go back to the typed in questions immediately following. But Angela has been waiting patiently. So Angela, I've given you permission to unmute yourself. So please go ahead and ask your question.
So I know that this building is just a proposal so far, but has the builder thought of how long this building will take to complete? So one, would it be a wood structure or would it be a concrete structure? Question three, how many people will it house? How many jobs will be created? And exactly why only this site? So I'm finished with all my questions.
Sure. Yeah, those are great questions. I believe those would be appropriate for either Eric or Huda. So maybe Eric, you can start off, and Huda, jump in if you need anything to add, and I can remind you of what the questions were.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, so to recap, the questions were number of people.
How long will the building take to complete?
Mm-hmm.
That'll be about 2 years for
Yeah.
from start of construction.
It creates a lot of mass garbage around that building and site, and we live next door. So we are prepared for 2 years of noise.
Okay,
will it be a wood structure?
No, it's not a wood structure. It's concrete.
Are there any mitigation factors? I think the heart of the question, if I'm getting you right, Angela, is about maybe disruption to your everyday life. Is there any mitigation factors for noise or industrial waste, dust, that kind of stuff?
What we have planned is that when right now we're, as I think Peter and Eric have outlined in our process, we still have a number. This is the first of a number of steps that we're undertaking. By the time we get to construction, what we'd like to do, it's typical that you have what's in essence a construction management plan. And what we would like to do again in the effort of transparency is to publish those details onto our website to let the public, let our neighbors know how we're going to be a courteous neighbor during construction. I know I don't think that's typical, at least I haven't come across it very often in the industry, but we're going to be doing that because it is sensitive for our neighbors and we understand that.
And I'll add that typically, typically construction management plan is reviewed by the town, reviewed by the municipality, and the town's going to be having their standard requirements for construction timing, construction noise, construction cleanup, making sure nothing goes off site. And so the construction management plan is not only coming from Alexis, but incorporating those requirements too.
Yes. How many people would this building house? How many people? Residents.
So the MZO, it's up to a maximum of 120. The MZO has that in its text that it would be a maximum of 120 and not more.
Yeah. How many jobs will be created for the city?
Approximately off of our modeling, you're looking in the range of 70 jobs between full-time and part-time employees.
Now, I looked at your building, and to me, that looks like a nice building for an office. I don't think I want I don't think I want myself in that building because it looks pretty austere. I would like to see more. It's situated in a place where you could look out and see a good scenery. I know they look out and see the park, and that park is quite beautiful. But I still think, why this site? to build a building like that. It's like a big office building. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I can take this one. When it comes to why this site, again, I think you actually outlined some of the points. The fact that we're next to that park, I think, creates a nice environment for our residents. And it's when you're in that neighborhood on Rupert there, it's a quiet neighborhood. You know, it's not very noisy. You know, it's close knit. I think those are all attributes that are very positive for our residents, especially those that are living with dementia. When it comes to your comments about the design of the building, I actually saw, I think you submitted this question ahead of time, and I was actually excited to see it and some of the questions along those lines, because actually what we didn't get into in this presentation, this was really more about planning elements. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be showing a lot of the work that we're doing. This building is really going to be a standard, not just in Canada, but in North America for evidence-based design. And so when you look at the interiors of our building, the way that we've designed it, really from the floor to the ceiling, everything's designed to create an environment that can actually enhance the life of somebody living with dementia. So we're taking.
Oh, looks like we might have lost William temporarily. I know he's had some connectivity issues for the day. Might just take him a second to get back.
Taking this really serious. We've no one back. Hello?
We heard taking this really serious.
Hello?
and then you'd rejoin
Okay,
us.
now we cut. Yeah, so I said we're taking this very seriously. We've been working with experts in the US at top universities and in Canada. And so this is really, again, and they're all giving us really high marks for the work that we're doing. And when it comes to exterior design, that's part of it too. Again, this design's not final, so we're going to be updating this a little bit as well. So we appreciate your comment. It's duly noted, and that sort of feedback is very important for us as we go. We do want it to be homey, and so it's nice. This is our sort of unveiling to the public, so we appreciate that.
Angela, I want to thank you for those thoughtful questions. In interest of time, we're just going to move on to some of the typed in questions. If you do have a follow-up, please write in the chat, raise your hand again, or you can email after the fact and a team member will get to you. We're certainly not ignoring you. I just want to also mention that it is coming on 8 o'clock. We are willing to stay to 8:30 to answer additional questions, as there does seem to be quite a bit of interest. Again, if you're not able to stay with us till 8:30, the transcript, the recording, and the reports will be publicly available. So you're not missing out if you need to stretch your legs or grab a bite to eat. So the next question we have here is from Ivan. He says, given that you have used the connection to the first location of Parkview as a lure for your promotional materials, have you been in contact with the current Parkview campus to explore potential collaborations? And that sounds like a question for William.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't mean to come across as a lure. What that was sort of what we're sort of emphasizing with Parkview is that this site was actually not even just zoned for this, but it was actually used for this from I believe it was the 1950s all the way till very recently. So it's more, again, about a return to the use and a natural progression of the site. When it comes to working with Parkview, again, Alexis Lodge is its own entity that's been operating memory care homes since 1999. We're happy to collaborate with any other industry participants, but it's not something that we've explored at this time. It's preliminary until we actually get our approvals.
Great. And just to clarify, this is not connected to Parkview.
This is not connected to Parkview, no.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just gonna go to this quick question about wearable technology that was referenced in the video, and if there's any further information that you can provide about independent research and the efficacy of wearable technology amongst the population with dementia.
Yeah, sure. So basically what we're doing, we've been working with a group out of Silicon Valley called New Deal Design. Actually, they're the ones who designed Fitbit and have worked with Fitbit right through conception all the way to the initial public offering to work on something as we're internally calling the PSW aid. We recognize that PSWs are the true superstars of these homes. And we think that anything that we can do to accentuate the strengths of those PSWs is really going to benefit our residents. And that goes, and basically what we have is that the building will be equipped with a lot of sensors that can give insights to the PSW, insights that they might not have even seen with their own naked eye. So that's what we're working on. We've been having conversations with Open Lab down at UHN about studying these effects. There's not a lot of research on that particularly. So actually we're going to be at the forefront of that sort of work.
Great. I saw a question from Karina, which is, I think, a really good one about whether or not all the questions will be answered. Is there a commitment by either both the consulting team and AlexisNext to respond to these questions if we aren't able to get to them this evening?
Yes.
Great. And we just as a reminder, we will be providing an email address if you want to submit questions after the fact. I know that many of you submitted questions before the meeting as well, which is fantastic. Okay. Next question is from, or it's a comment rather, from Gail, which says, "Thank you for this overview. I'm impressed with the work of Alexis Lodge and would like to express my support for this project. Christiana and William truly focus on good care, love, and best practices. I have already chatted with them about this project and I am impressed with their vision. Is there anything you need from colleagues that would support what they need to, is there anything you need from colleagues that would support what they need when seeking approval for this project? I'm happy to provide support and expertise." I'm assuming that means either deputations to council or writing emails to councillors. Perhaps that's a shared question for William and Peter.
Yeah, I would defer to Peter.
Okay.
Well, certainly you're all free to write your comments directly to council on this for next week. We'd also welcome getting your additional feedback and comments as well as we continue to work on this process. So nothing is being hidden. Everything is out in the open. It's a public process that we're in.
Great. Okay, so we're going to go to a live question now. David and Connie McVicker have been waiting patiently. So like previously, I'm going to now allow you to talk. So you should be able to unmute your microphone and ask your question. I can see you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you at this time. I'll just give you another second, but if we can't hear you, please type in your question. I'll go to it immediately. Okay, it seems like maybe there's some technical difficulties there, but again, please type your question into the Q&A or email it afterwards, and we'll be sure to get back to you with a response. Okay, so I have a couple questions, or a follow-up question rather, to one that we had earlier about the terraces and potentially some of the shadow towards the north side on Elm. So the question from Charles is, it's difficult to tell from the diagrams how low the terraces are. And I'll go to Eric regarding the terrace heights.
Yep, and I'm pulling up the drawings now. Ryan, can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
This is Huda, and Huda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the top of the third floor is roughly 15 meters in height. So that's where the third floor would start, and then each terrace steps back a couple meters before rising with each floor.
It stepped back 4.5 meter. And so in total, we are back in both floor 9 meter. So the first terrace is on the roof of the third floor, and the second terrace is the roof of the fourth floor.
Correct. And so the maximum height of the building at 18.9 meters is 9 meters back from the rear of the building.
Yes. So 15 meter plus 9 meter. So it's about 24 meter back, really.
Right, from the rear property line, 24 meters back is the max height of the building. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Actually, just check. I finally found in my own notes, the third floor roof, where the first terrace starts, is actually 11.7 meters, and the fourth floor roof is just over 15 meters. So I quoted the wrong floor actually. So the third floor starts even lower at 11 meters, which is what would be facing the service yard at the rear, and then going up to 15, and then going up to 19.
And these slides will be available for you to review later if you need to take a closer look or take maybe a longer look.
Beside the fact that we do have a pergola and with lots of green, so even if you are walking
we may have lost Huda for a second. So in the meantime, we'll proceed with the next question, which I believe might be for Greg about traffic. And the question from Sherry is, I'm concerned about increased traffic, vehicle traffic, especially truck traffic, which she says it's already busy with garbage trucks, delivery trucks, and moving trucks. So Greg, I believe if you have anything to say about any traffic mitigation or what the situation may be.
Sure, no problem. So we are in the midst of conducting traffic impact analysis for this development. So we will be preparing a traffic impact study that looks at traffic at the accesses to the development. This type of development generates such low trips that it doesn't qualify for a full traffic impact study, but rather a review and analysis of the accesses to the development and the interaction between those accesses and the streets that they access. In terms of truck traffic, we would look at loading in the context of maneuverability, but in terms of the volume of trucks, that would be probably a William question in terms of the frequency of those trucks and when they might be coming, but it would definitely be managed, but I would leave that to him to address or redirect as appropriate.
Yeah, when it comes to the trucks, Huda, what figure were we using right now for deliveries?
We are using medium-sized trucks, and we are using it upon schedule delivery, and it is not more than going to be 3 times a week, and often maintenance truck will be needed for any purpose of like a medium-sized truck. So these trucks are not government trucks, are scheduled and delivered by the owner, and they will come on a scheduled time to suit the surrounding, not in a like at night or something that will annoy the neighbors.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So this is of a similar vein. of question. It says, we have concerns about a concession of 5 meters or 15 feet to have loading noises and perhaps garbage trucks in close proximity, regardless of barriers. We respectfully request full details on this concession. So I believe that's more of a comment, but if there's any answers that can be provided about noise barriers or mitigation, that might be of benefit to Charles.
It is not 15 feet, 15 meter.
Sorry, 5 meters, 15 feet.
5, yeah, well, so we have a noise barrier. We do have lots of trees. We have a pergola all over, like running from east to west on the northern part of the loading dock. And this pergola is about 1.8 meter and almost going up to 2 meter high, and will have lots of trees, evergreen tree on that. So this will mitigate the noise and also dust and things from the neighbor.
Great. Okay. Moving on to a question from Karina, but just before we get there, those that have raised their hand, they're still up. If you did have a second question to ask, please feel free to leave them up. But it's difficult for me to tell if there's another question or if it's just has stayed up. So again, if there's no follow-up, please click the raise hand button again to lower it so I can get a sense of what's active and what's not. Okay, so on to Karina's question, which is what, if any, financial ripple effects will there be for residents in Stouffville, given that the funding is not secured as mentioned in, I believe, a previous question? And maybe I'll pass that to Peter.
Well, this is a privately funded project. It's not expecting any public funds, so there is no impact on the town of Stouffville. My point was that you can't get financing for this kind of a project until you have some certainty around the zoning, around the timing for that. So that was my point.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Charles, your hand is still up, so I'm assuming you have another question. So please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead, but your hand did just go down. So I'm gonna, oh, did you have a question there? Okay, I'm gonna assume that's a no, and if I'm wrong about that, please feel free to put your hand back up and we'll come back to you. Okay, Karina has another question, which is, will you be providing residents with a set project plan outlining the development process, including all building plans and dates, so that Rupert Avenue residents can plan around road closures and traffic inconveniences as a result of construction? So really a question about communications there during the development process. And I'm not sure who that's appropriate for. So whoever's ready to jump in on the development process or the construction process rather, feel free to take that one.
Yeah, I would just say with the development process, probably what we can do is on the website, just let people know where we are right now, right? So after this meeting, we're going to be posting this consultation for viewing, and we'll let people know we're going to council and such, and people can follow up with us from there. When it comes to the detailed sort of points about construction, again, because right now we're in the process, it's kind of hard to set fixed dates about when we're going to be doing things until final approval comes through. But again, when we get to that point, we mentioned the construction management plan, and we'll be sure again to do proper notification for road closures and things of that nature But again, we're a little bit of a ways away from that right now in terms of process.
Okay. So the next question is from Charles, who is asking, assuming ground breaks on time, what is the estimated time to completion? And I think it's really about that time frame of construction, as he's noting that residents on both Elm and Rupert tolerated significant construction noise and inconvenience from the condominium buildings neighboring the site for close to 10 years. And let's go to William for that.
Yeah, construction should take 2 years. And again, we're sort of giving that as an estimate. If I would love to finish it faster than 2 years, but I think that's the correct timeline that everyone should plan for.
Great. Okay, so we have about 5 more questions, so we'll work through them. Karina is asking, 2 years is a long time to have garbage bins and waste and dust near the park. These steps that you're undertaking, such as the construction management plan, are being told to us as a courtesy in the industry, but it seems that residents of Rupert Avenue will not have a chance to provide feedback on the construction management plan. Is that correct? And we'll go to William again.
If anybody wants to step in here, I would just say that again, I believe Eric mentioned that the construction management plan is overlooked by the town of Stouffville, so it's reviewed and approved. And then also as well, the building department would enforce like anything. Like if we were if we were acting inappropriately on the site towards our neighbors, again, there's sort of methods of enforcement to make us comply. That's not going to be an issue, but just to let you know the process, sort of how it works. So there are representatives for you as a resident at the town that are looking out for your best interests.
I'll jump in to add, construction management plan for any type of development project. They're reviewed by municipal staff. They're typically not something that goes for public input because the municipal staff, there are specialized municipal staff who focus on this kind of thing. If there are specific concerns that anyone in the area has that they think might be missed by staff, they can definitely bring that up with the town so that they can flag it. But the construction management staff go through the right departments who look out for the streets, who look out for the parks. They make sure that, again, all the impacts are meant to stay on the property, and staff have a role in enforcing that, particularly on the comment about any impacts to the park. There's the existing fence, and the plan will definitely be focused on making sure there's no flow of any kind of impact to the park.
Perfect. Okay, Janet has a question, just a quick one, and I believe it's for William, about whether or not AlexisNext is a for-profit or not-for-profit long-term care home.
And I think there's actually 2 questions in there. One, probably for those that are just a little bit less informed, a long-term care home are also what otherwise known as a nursing home, is actually a publicly funded home. What we are is we're actually going to be operating as a retirement home, which is legislated by the RHRA, the Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority. And as a matter of fact, for retirement homes, is that all retirement homes are for profit. So that's the way the building is planned. And again, we'd be happy to collaborate with the government on something if they find our work innovative and interesting to them.
Great. So I just want to give David and Connie's question a little priority because they had their hand up just a minute ago and weren't able to ask it. So they are asking, we live on Rupert Avenue and have had 43 years. They've lived on the avenue for 43 years rather. The construction vehicles from the condo was more than frustrating and felt unsafe. What is the route for construction vehicles? Are you the same owners as the condo? So there's a couple questions here. and the property sat for about a decade to complete. You say 2 years, but and will it really be will it be if there's no financing currently available for the project? How is garbage being kept? So maybe we'll start with the route for construction vehicles, and then a question about the timeline as well.
Yeah, again, when it comes to the route for construction vehicles, it's again, it's premature right now to like we don't have approvals for this project at this time. So when we do the work for the construction management plan, that's when we do the detailed work on that. And like again, we made a commitment that we would release those details to the public. When it comes to the 2 years, right now we already have like we mentioned, the approvals right now give us the certainty of when this project will be approved and gives our financiers the certainty. So that's why this is very important in terms of expediting things and making sure everything stays on track. And again, with garbage again being kept inside of, okay, this is actually about the building itself. Yes, there's garbage rooms on site and there's proper garbage disposal. Again, this is a healthcare facility, so the garbage is we put a lot of time and thought into infection control. It's really high end, a lot higher than you would expect for a condo building, for example. Yes, and I just quickly, all retirement homes are for profit. Yes, retirement homes are for profit. Long-term care facilities are publicly funded, and long-term care facilities, there can be a distinction between for-profit long-term care and non-for-profit long-term care. So that's really when people sort of talk about long-term care, it's actually 3 slices. And retirement homes are the fully private, and then you have long-term care, which is split into 2. So just for that clarification.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. We have one live question, which I'll go to now, which is from Chris. Chris, I'm going to provide you with permission to speak, and then you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, I have one question for you. You say you are classified as a retirement home. Does that mean that the residents can come and go as they please? If they can't come and go as they please, they would have to have somebody looking after them, which means there would be somebody caring for them, which means this would be a care home, not a retirement home. The second point I want to make is retirement homes are not inexpensive to live in. And a home that specializes in such things as dementia, Alzheimer's, or cognitive diseases has to have some extra expenses involved in it. And I would imagine you would be getting a nice amount of money from the health department every month. Is that right?
Okay, so your last question actually ties in a little bit to your first question. And no, as a retirement home, we don't get any money from the government. So that's really, again, the distinction between retirement home and long-term care home. And I know it's confusing the way the system's set up because retirement home can encompasses a huge continuum of care. It goes from independent living, which is basically, I think you could think of, the sort of luxury properties, basically somebody wanted to downsize who didn't want to deal with a lot of things, but maybe wanted, a nurse in the building, all the way through memory care. So that's what a retirement, like that retirement home designation has a lot. And basically we're saying if we're on that spectrum, we're at the end of that spectrum, basically with
William's connection tends to kick back in pretty quickly. So we'll just give him
high care needs individual.
We heard up to high care needs individual. Oh, we may have lost him again. Okay, so we'll wait for William's connection to reconnect, but we do note your question about cost there, about the degree of cost for living, the sort of in and out privileges, maybe privilege isn't the right word, but the ability for residents to leave. And then I think you're just covering off the government subsidy piece. Yeah,
Am I
you're
back
back.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. And so I think that really takes care of the question about retirement homes, sort of understanding that distinction, and maybe we could do a little bit to explain that to people. When it comes to in and out privileges, what I would say, it is a care home. So people who have who have high degrees of cognitive impairment are going to be completely supervised. And then there's obviously people who are just in the very early stages of dementia or other cognitive impairing illnesses, and those people will have a lot more freedom to move about as they please. But it's really on a case-by-case basis, and that's really how it would go. In terms of cost, yes, your cost is noted. The average cost of a home just for the rent is about $5,000 in Ontario for a single room. That's not to include care, which you're sort of looking in the range of $7,500 a month. We're doing everything in our power right now. We're actually, one of the major things is to cut the cost of care, and I think that we mentioned that in the video. So we're working on some innovative approaches, but of course, our main source of revenue is the building itself. And that's why it's very important for us to firm up the details of this approval so that we can, make sure that we're driving down this cost of care.
That's great, William. Thank you. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I think really just one question. So we'll do that, and then we'll wrap up. But the question is about parking. Is the parking on ground level or underground? And wouldn't that influence the height of the building if it was underground? And I'll pass that to Huda.
Thank you. We do have parking on the ground, on the grade, which is for visitor mainly. And we have most of the parking for resident and staff and under in the basement. And the height of we have about 22 parking on the basement level. And the height of the parking is the same height of the basement, which is about 4 meter high. And among those, we have 2 handicap parking according to the zoning requirement. And we have another handicap parking on the grade.
I'll add there, so that, yeah, there's the underground. The underground parking is proposed to be accessed by a ramp from the front of the building in the current layout, and so that ramp would slope down, and so having a level of underground parking does not change the height of the building overall.
No.
Perfect. Okay. Eric, if you would mind just taking us to the next slide, we will be ready to close out for the evening. So again, just before we give William the opportunity for maybe some last words, we wanted to thank you for attending. It's a generous donation of your time to be here, and we appreciate that on a beautiful summer night where the rain is finally held off for us. Just a reminder that you can go to www.alexisnext.com to review more information about this project and see updates. If you'd like to reach out to the team there, you can contact them at info@alexisnext.com, which is available by email. And then lastly, you can also follow Alexis Next on Instagram, which is Alexis_Next. And William, I'd like to provide you with the opportunity to close this out.
Yeah, no, I'll be very brief. Thanks everybody for attending. I thought we had a really good conversation. And the only point that I'll give is that we're going to be, again, super transparent, and we're actually really excited to share a lot of the work that we've done. So please follow us on the web, whether it's the website or social media. I think you're going to see a lot of information following this meeting, and really hopefully right through construction. So we have a lot of stuff coming. Very excited. Thanks again, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and meeting is now adjourned. Have an excellent evening.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
I'll stay on just to make sure that no one gets shut out before they wanted to, and then I'll close it. And I'll stop the recording now as well.